you doing, everybody? I'm over here in Brooklyn at my family's bar. My cousin George, who is my first cousin, my father and his sister are brother and sister, of course. So anyway, make a long story short, we usually get together every few weeks and we have a family dinner here at the bar. Pasta, sauce, Italian bread, you name it, over here in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, on Avenue U, okay? So we're gonna go inside now, meet some of my family, and check out the food and all the characters.
I gotta cook for me. I enjoy my ass. I was like to the daddy. You put it. Go back to where you belong. Little man where you belong. I need you like any kid. Oh, cut it out now. I need you like any kid. Get it. Get it. I'm the cook and you. Don't touch my kid's gotta eat. My kid's gotta eat dinner. Come on. Come on, let's wait. I'll show you me. Wait. I'll show you real man. Wait. I'm gonna show you real man. Wait. I'm gonna show you real man. Wait. I'm gonna show you real man. Come here. Pose for me. My kid's gotta eat dinner.
The family.
All right, we're here talking with Jimmy the Bull, and Jimmy, you were just telling us, before you were poised to go into the Marine Corps here. What I really wanted to ask you before that was, I understand that you started training with weights just prior to going into the Marines. Tell me how that started, because here you are as a pretty undisciplined guy. You quit playing football. How did that come about?
That also changed my life too, actually, because what happened was when my father passed away, and I did get that 1 year period, I was rebellious and all of that, even worse. My poor mother, I feel sorry for her, because now I'm a parent too, so I could plead with her, like son not coming home till 3, 4 in the morning, But my neighbor was a detective, a homicide detective. I was neighbors with him for 20-something years. He felt bad for me when my father passed away, because this is in the 70s, bro, So he actually came over and gave me these weights, They were from Sears. I don't know if you ever remember them. They were plastic with the cement inside them.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And they had Sears roebuck on it, They were cool. They were like, you shook them, you could hear the cement.
Yeah, they would break.
Yeah. So I made some, BS bar up, and I made my own dumbbells, and he showed me a little bit, and I, because I was only like 14, and I started pumping iron a little bit, and.
Did you respond right away? Did you realize you were strong, or you didn't even realize it?
I didn't realize that I had like natural strength until what happened was my friend Mike Wickham was a good friend of mine back in school too. He was a state champ wrestler. Then he went international. He was wrestling the Russians. He was on Mike Destichia, Eric Schneider. A lot of my friends who became these big time wrestlers. So and they used to naturally training goes with that. So I used to go over to my friend Mike's house. He had a family of 9, 8 brothers. He had 7 brothers and 2 sisters, right? And they were all wrestlers. So their father made them this room in the back with this indoor-outdoor carpet with all these makeshift weights too. It was nothing around back in that day.
Right.
I think Jack LaLanne was around.
Yeah, there were no gyms really. Yeah.
There was really no gym. The high school had a Universal. Make a long story short, I would go and train at Mike's house. We would box, lift weights, and then, I was pretty strong with the weights. And Mike and them couldn't believe, like I was able to bench like 200 pounds with all these.
Were you stronger than them?
Yeah, like they couldn't believe it because they say, you drink beer, you smoke pot, you got long hair, and like they were all total jocks, and they're like, you just come to the house and start pushing these weights, and I was beating shit everybody with the gloves. My one friend Pat McCarthy was, he wanted to put the gloves on with me. And I kicked the shit out of him. And, I was just good with the boxing. I never continued that though, but I wasn't afraid to get in there. You know? But I used to go home with rug burns all over my elbows, back of because they used to wrestle me, and they used to use me as an instrument because they were.
You were probably the strongest guy there. That's why.
Yeah, right. So they knew how to wrestle. I didn't. I would just muscle them. If they put me in a move, I try to, I didn't know how to wrestle, So they would put all these moves on me and like dig my face into across the rug. I used to go home. My mother goes, "What happened to you?" She thought I was wrong with somebody. I was like, "No, I was at Mike's house. We were wrestling." But
so did you take that weight training into the Marines? Did you train while you were in the Marines?
Yeah. What happened actually, while that all was going on, and just before I went in the Marine Corps. My grandmother was from Brooklyn. We were all from Brooklyn, you know. And she used to stay with us a lot, you know. And I always remember my grandmother in a nightgown. She was always in a night robe, no matter what, 24/7. So I used to mess around with her. I was like 15, you know. I used to go, nah. And I used to, flex my arms. She used to feel it, and she used to say in Italian, like a lion, like a bull. You know, she used to say it in Italian. It sounded good, you know. So I really didn't think anything of it at that time. I'll be honest with you. She always used to say I was like a piece of iron, and I was strong like a bull, because I was. I used to toss my brother around and everything, you know.
Is that where the Iron Bull name came from?
Actually, that's where it did come from. What happened was later on, you know, I did join the Marine Corps. I came home with the papers. I said, "Ma, sign these papers." My mother started crying because I made her sign. You know, it was her only.
You're only 17.
Yeah, I was her oldest son. And my father passed away many years ago. You know, so she signed them. You know. And I went away in the Marine Corps. And that's when I went on the base. When I got out of boot camp, I was in Camp Lejeune, first base I was on. And I went to the facility. They had a gym there. It was tremendous, you know.
They had real weights, obviously.
Yeah, it was like an airplane hangar. Because all the Marines trained, and they had to, you know, recon, you know, carrying equipment. So I walk into this place, I'm like, holy shit, look at all this equipment. I was like in a candy store, you know?
Right.
So I just dove in there. I was just doing everything, bench, fly, machines. I had everything in this.
What was your strength like compared to some of these other guys?
Oh, I was very strong. But I have to tell you, I met some guys like from Tennessee and all that there. These guys never lifted weights in their lives. They were animals, man. Yeah. Like, these guys didn't even know what a pair of shoes were until they joined the Marine Corps. They were making moonshine up in the hills with their grandfather. I'm not kidding. They joined the Marine Corps, you know. But they just were strong. They were like farmers, just, you know. But I always had good strength, man. I always hung with them. What were you
benching back in those days? Do you remember?
Yeah, I have to say, probably before I even reached 18, 19, I was probably over 4. You
were doing over 400-pound benches?
Yeah, definitely. I was doing it easy.
Wow. And what'd you weigh?
Oh, I was probably 185. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I had a shed in my backyard. I finally built like this gym in my backyard. All my friends used to come over. I had a trail. My mother used to get mad because we had nice grass in the back.
Yeah.
I had this dirt trail going to the shed.
Yeah.
Because my friends would just come whenever they want, all hours of the night.
Oh, really?
It was like an open gym for everybody.
Yeah. This was after the Marines or before?
Yeah, this is just before, too.
Oh.
So, and I'll never forget it. Because I was out of my mind, I used to put these big jackets on, you know, in the middle of the winter, and I used to go back there and make like I was huge, right? Because I was nuts, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to be strong. It's all I cared about. I didn't care anything else. I just wanted to throw the weight around, you know? And I used to just take the like 275, you know, and just, you know, and I made like I was bigger than I was with the jacket on, you know, and I was just because, you know, I was crazy, but I definitely, you know, was always strong.
When you got out of the Marines, how did the weightlifting progress from that point? In other words, how did you actually get into the competing aspect of it in terms of, you know, working out with other bodybuilders and looking the way you did, you know, in modern age?
Well, you know, it's another thing too. Is like when I got out of the Corps.
How old were you first of all when you got out?
22. And I used to go to this health club, Rab's Health Club. A friend of mine, Richie Barrety, who was a martial artist, he owned these clubs, you know. And Jimmy Quinn, you know, I hooked up with Jimmy later because Jimmy started turning into a pro bodybuilder. His brother got him started in it, all right, Johnny Quinn. You probably don't know him.
No.
Yeah, Johnny got him into it, and then Jimmy took off with it, and Jimmy was getting pretty big, you know. So we hooked up again eventually, me and Jimmy, and he was training at that gym, so me and Jimmy started hooking up together. And this gym was pretty popular. I mean, we had, at one point, we had Freeman McNeil training there. Mark Gastineau was there. Jerry Cooney trained there.
Oh, wow. This was out in Huntington?
Yeah. It's a Sam Ash now, but
yeah,
it was in a basement.
Wow.
So, and then he had it was half a martial arts studio, and the other half was, you know, Chris Confessori and Neil Confessori trained there.
They were there. May he rest in peace, too.
Yeah, I know, he just passed away, it's so sad. So, you know, I remember times where Neil was on a leg press, right? And we used to take a 2x4. I used to crack the smelling salt, because in those days, everybody was out of their minds. Yeah. And we used to give him the smelling salt, you know, and he used to, we used to take a 2x4, whack him in the head with bleed and everything. Yeah, that's what he wanted. And he would start doing the leg press, and we hitting him with the 2x4. You know, crazy.
People don't do that anymore.
Nah, this is like insane stuff, you know. I'll never forget, Richie wanted us to do, because I didn't pay, because what happened was I went down there to train with Jimmy. The first time, Richie Barrety saw me training. I was doing dumbbell flies, like 140s, you know.
So you were very strong at this point.
Yeah, I was benching like 5, you know, Chris was there and all that. They were, watching me, and I was just going nuts, So after I got done training, Richie came over to me. He goes, "What's your name?" I says, "Jimmy Pellechia, He goes, "Listen, man." He goes, "I'm going to give you a key." He goes, "You train here anytime."
He gave you the key?
Yeah, he gave me the key. He goes, "I love your attitude." He goes, "You don't just train." He says, "You attack the weights." He goes, "I love that." He goes, "You train here whenever you want." I says, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." So me and Jimmy looked at each other. That's cool, because we had the key come anytime we want.
Right. I'm sure Jimmy.
And I became good friends with Richie. So one time we were.
You actually were in a movie with Richie.
Yeah, Cage Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah, I became very good friends with Richie later on. I started kicking in his dojo.
Oh, is that where you learned the martial arts through him?
I actually just started in the Marine Corps. I started doing Taekwondo. And then I took it and came home, and then I started training with Richie.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that you had. John Romano used to brag about the fact that you could kick a piece of tape off the ceiling.
Yeah, I did everything to the extreme, Dave. It was just my mentality, it's good and bad, But I'm not an addictive personality. I'm just a very extreme. Like I have to take it to the point where I mastered it.
You want to be the best.
Yeah, whatever I did, So the kicking part of it, was,
It was all because you failed that test going into the Army. That's what it was.
Yeah, well, I joined the Marine Corps. That was to just change my life around, So anyway, regular story short, we're in the Richie's like, "Can you guys help us, Sunday paint the locker room?" And in those days, it was like just wooden bench, and then like the old school lockers,
Right.
big tall. That's what the locker room was, indoor, outdoor rug, fluorescent lights, and he had pipes in the ceiling, and it used to rain there in the summertime because the moisture from the pipes, the condensation. We actually be working out, and it was actually raining in the gym, right? So we moved the lockers because we're going to paint the wall now, right? So we all grabbed the lockers, we moved the lockers away from the wall, and we all looked behind the lockers. It was like 2,000 syringes behind the lockers, man.
What? Why people take shots and throw them over the
They were just
locker
taking
room?
them, throwing them over the locker, throwing them over the locker. Nobody, I didn't know, what I mean? So we pull it, and I look, I said, "Holy shit!" It was like thousands of them,
Did you know about anabolic steroids at that point?
No. I mean, I heard of them. I know
Yeah.
people who did them, but I really didn't touch them,
So you were benching 500 clean.
Yeah, I was doing all that.
Yeah.
I was skull crushing 315 already, And I used to. One of my other good friends moved out to California. I went out there. I started training at his gym. And, that's how I got the job with Metrex too. When I left Twin Lab.
Right.
But anyway, so the Iron Bull name never really kicked in until after when Jimmy finally moved to California. I missed him. So because we trained together for a long time.
Jimmy went out there to pursue bodybuilding.
Yeah, he was working for Twin Labs at the time too, I believe.
Yeah.
So he went out there to pursue his career and all of that there. And I used to go train out there with him. And one time I was in the Gold's Gym. Now, because you said, how did I get involved in the weightlifting? I was never really a bodybuilder. And I never had a desire to really bodybuild, I just loved training weights, drinking beer and brawling, and women. That's really what I was all about. I was young, I had to say it. And I always worked though, I never really missed work. You know how my work ethic is.
Yeah. You get that from the Marines, I think.
Yeah, I'm a worker. I'm not one of these guys where I drink. I can't get up in the morning. I'm sleeping. Sure. To me, that's a bum. Yeah. If I'm out drinking, it's my responsibility to get up and get to work. I don't care what shape I was in, which sometimes was pretty bad. But so when I was out in California, Jimmy Quinn was hanging out with Don Ross. He was kind of friendly with Don Ross at that time.
Don Ross was one of the editors for Muscular Development magazine at the time, and he was writing a column called, I think it was called Muscle Beach or something like
Muscle
that.
Beat.
Muscle Beat, was it?
Muscle Beach, maybe. Muscle
something
Beat or
like
Muscle
that.
Beat.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was towards the back of the magazine. I think he had a page or.
He would find new talent. Because I remember when I came to the gym back much later in the '90s, he came running after me. So
he was like a scout.
Yeah, scout, exactly.
And he was a great rider too.
Yeah, and he was crazy too.
He was crazy.
Don the Ripper Ross.
Because he was a wrestler. I have tapes of him home when he was wrestling.
Like the WWE wrestling type.
That's crazy, man. But anyway, I'm training in the gym, and Don Ross goes, "Hey, Jimmy," he goes, "Who's your friend over there?" So Jimmy says, "Oh, my friend Jimmy from New York. He's just here for a few days." He goes, you guys from New York are animals. He goes, can I talk to him? So she goes, "Yeah, come on, I'll introduce you." So he comes over and he goes, "Hey, I'm Don Ripper Ross." I said, "Hey, Don, Jimmy, how you doing?" And I didn't really have that name, Jimmy the Bull, yet.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No. What happened was during that whole mix there, my grandmother, she passed away, and that's kind of like after I met Don Ross, and Don fly me over to his house. I'd fly into California. I would do interviews at his house, in his apartment. And Don kind of knew me. He's like you. He knows me very well, how to push my buttons and things to say to me to get me going. So the first thing he would do is when I go to his apartment, and then Rita, remember his wife, Rita?
Yes.
Rita would be inside, doing her thing, and Don would sit me down, put the tape recorder, he'd crack a beer, and he would put a bowl of a weed joint, And I swear to God.
He was a weed smoker.
Yeah, big time, So, all right, so I start drinking 1 beer, 2 beer, Then he starts talking to me, he's interviewing me, and then I smoke the joint.
He loosened you up a little bit.
Yeah, you loosened me up, Then he started the digs, Did you hear what that guy said? And I'm like, what guy's that? That guy from Alabama, he was ripping him out. I said, that fucked up. Now we just go off, And I forget I was on the recorder.
Right.
Because I forgot.
And he would transcribe that into the magazine.
Yeah, then later on he would do that. And I'd read it. And I said, Don, you put that shit in there? He goes, why, it's great stuff. I was like, oh my God. I couldn't believe the shit he was putting in there, But for me, the stupid idiot, I forgot he was recording me.
So
because
people are probably starting to say, who is this guy? Because remember, there was no internet. People have to understand there was no internet. And the only way to really know who anyone was to read the magazines. And we read the magazines like it was the Bible
Pretty
back
much,
then.
Yeah.
So
right.
people knew who you were now because Don started writing about you.
He started writing about me. And the stories he was coming out.
So where did the Iron Bull name come from?
So... And I think that's another thing that made me unique too. Was like the crazy stories that he made me get out of me. It wasn't like a typical,
No. And no one would admit that anyway.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so what happened was during that whole intern there, which I didn't plan, and I wasn't really pursuing anything. I was just working. I was laying marble at the time, breaking my ass like usual. And my grandmother passed away. And then I did another interview after that with Don later on, and he was asking me about my grandmother, And I said, yeah, Don, I used to, always flex with my grandmother. My grandmother loved it. I used to go, Nanny, come on, Nanny, that's right. And she used to always grab me, like a piece of iron, She was like a bull, because she knew I was strong.
Yeah.
So Don Ross said,
Iron Bull.
Iron Bull, right? I'm like, well, I don't know, yeah, I get you. And so he wrote it up as that.
And he kind of reinforced
He coined
the
it. He pretty much, I was just telling the story. I had no idea. I wasn't making up a name.
You trademarked that name eventually.
Yeah, I mean, my grandmother was always saying that, so he was like, because him, he loves that creativity stuff.
Well, you became the Iron Bull at that point.
Yeah, then he wrote it up as the Iron Bull, and the Iron Bull comes to California. When I was a little kid, my uncle, who passed away, my Uncle Pat, George's father, used to live on top of the pizzeria next door. And my uncle had a little above-the-ground pool in the back. And me and my brother and my cousins, we used to jump out the second-story window into the pool. And one time it broke, and the above-ground pool split open, and all the water went into the pizzeria. My uncle wanted to kill all of us, But I'm going to show you the windows where we were. Those are the windows right there that you're looking at. All right, the one with the air conditioning that's the bedroom window. That's the one we were jumping out into the little area in the back where it's an ground pool. That's the kind of stuff you did in Brooklyn, man. What can I tell you?
We're talking with Jimmy the Bull Pellechia, and we're talking now a little bit more about into more of your heyday, I guess, in the 90s. Don Ross had coined the phrase power bodybuilding, the Iron Bull. People are starting to understand who you are now. You still don't have any contracts. You still haven't been working for anyone at this point. What are your lifts at this point like? What are you doing now in the gym? What are some of the craziness that you're doing? What was the bench press up to, the skull crushers up to at this point?
You're right. I think in the very beginning, I didn't have any contracts yet. But my lifts they were getting pretty crazy, man. I was doing 4 or 5 skull crushers at the time. I was probably already doing seated curls with 125s, 135s.
What was the bench at?
Bench was around 7 something.
Which was more than the bench press of the day world record was at the time, which I know pissed off a lot of the bench pressers because they thought that you were disrespecting their sport of powerlifting. They got really in a bunch. I mean, people don't realize this was a tremendous, tremendous debate. They were livid about you.
Even I have to say, I'm very good friends with Chris Kelser, and God rest his soul. I can talk about him. He's passed away now, but even he got a little annoyed at me in the beginning because I was getting a lot of press,
More than they were.
And it wasn't legit. Chris legitimately had bench press records, and he had a few of them,
at the time.
And so when I was getting all this press about, my assistant bench and And I was doing flat dumbbell flies with 150s for 20 reps.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I was doing, at one point I had 180. I was doing flat flies with 180s. Oh, got that on video. But they were and powerlifters, they were getting a little annoyed with me because I was just, I came out of nowhere.
You're stealing their thunder.
And I was stealing their thunder, and they took it like I was making a mock of them, and I really wasn't, And I always explained that to Don Ross in my interviews. You can probably still find them somewhere online. I always said, listen, man, I'm not, if anything, I'm bringing more excitement to the sport for powerlifters because, let's face it, it's a little boring. I used to go to meets in the beginning before I started coming up. I went with my cousins and all, and I went to the biggest bench press on Myrtle Beach. I went to one of those.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I went with Chris Cavasori and his brother. I went to the Bronx
Did you
once.
bench?
Yeah, I benched. Yeah.
What would be your bench?
I was like top 10 in the country at one time.
Really?
Yeah, my name was in the powerlifting
What were
book.
you lifting, like officially?
455 I was doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I was
you
like
had no equipment on either.
Nothing, shit. I wasn't even, I was,
Jimmy, people don't realize you would bench press in the tank top.
yeah, I was
These
just,
guys would have 40 shirts on.
I was just like winging it, It was probably, I was partying the night before too.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, I wasn't knocking anybody. I never disrespected people. I'm not a disrespectful person. I'm really not. And the whole thing really unfolded for me naturally. I really didn't pursue a bodybuilding career. I mean, I was fortunate that I had the right people that just things clicked. Jimmy Quinn moved to California. Me going out there, met Don Ross. I started training the Barbarian Brothers, David and Peter.
They loved you.
David loved me, man. Yeah.
They thought you were the greatest
He
because
used
they
to
did
pick me up
crazy
in
lifts
his-
like that.
He used to come. I lived in Santa Monica for a short while, and he used to come. He insisted. He used to come in a little yellow Volkswagen.
Yeah, they had a Volkswagen. They drove it from Rhode Island out there, right?
He couldn't even fit in the car, and he used to come up and he'd be tooting the horn. I was with this girl Cindy at the time, and Cindy go, "Oh, your buddy's here," because he looked like an ape. So then I would get in there, and we really were like, we're bunched up. We're driving this Volkswagen, and we used to go to the gym and train together like animals.
Yeah.
And so I never disrespected anybody. I always gave everybody credit.
Did you move out to California at one point?
For about a year and a half, I did. Yeah, I traveled around. I met our good friend there,
Ed Connors.
Ed Connors.
Did he like you?
He did in the beginning. Yeah.
Until you wrecked his house. Yeah.
That's another whole story. But
Ed Connors, who owned Gold's Gym at the time. Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I mean, and then Doug Stackley. You remember Doug Stackley?
No.
You could probably look him up though. But he was an upcoming bodybuilder, big dude. And I was staying in Venice for a while at Ed's house, and then Ed said, "Come on, I'll take you down to Upland if you like it there. You stay there, because I wanted to live in California,
Sure.
And I stayed in Upland for maybe a few, 4 days, whatever. And he introduced me to the guys in the gym, in the Gold's Gym there.
Right.
And I met Doug Stackley,
Oh, you started training with him, right?
And Ed, he wanted to train with me, and Ed said, "Don't train with him."
Oh, you thought you were going to hurt him?
Yeah. He goes, "I'm telling you now, don't train with him." So I didn't know he said that.
Yeah.
Ed told me later, after the guy's pec tore off, because he wanted to bench with me because everybody hears the stories,
Right.
So I mean, sure, and I gotta be honest with you, Dave. You know me, man. I'm a genuinely, really humble person,
Sure.
man. I'm not out to hurt anybody.
Right.
I used to help kids in the gym if they were
Sure.
lifted incorrectly, So Doug wanted to start the benching. I says, "All right, yeah, all right, it's cool." So we went plate for plate. 1 plate, 2 plate, 3. Then he go 4 plate, I go 5 plates. I don't know. I went up to like 8 plates, and Doug attempted it, and he came
8
down.
plates he tried. This
Yeah,
retard.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And he took the weight. I helped him, and I got it all. And he's lowering it down, and he starts screaming.
Yeah.
Ah!
Did you lift it off?
And I'm spotting him. "Come on, Doug. Come on." He's going, "Ah!" And I see him turning like purple and red. And I said, "Wait a minute, this something ain't right."
Oh, no.
So I helped him. We picked it up, and he stood up, and I swear he got blood, and his pec was hanging.
Oh,
and I was like,
God.
"Holy!" I says, "Doug, man." I ran next door to the supermarket. And I got a big bag of ice from the cooler, and came back and he put it on him. Ed showed up. And was yelling at me.
With you?
Yeah, he was yelling at me. He was mad. And then he told Doug, "I told you not to train with him. Look now," because he was like a prominent. He was coming up.
Was that the end of his career after that?
I never heard from him again. I don't know what happened. I mean, he really got destroyed. I felt bad for the guy, man. I mean, it really wasn't my fault. I felt bad.
Well, he should have known better than to go try to stick with you.
So then
Can't hang with the Iron Bull.
Then Ed was like, "That's it," and he took me down to Palm Springs.
I got you out of the.
Yeah, he got me out of there. Right? So we're pulling in down to the Palm Canyon. I'm in his car with him, and as soon as it was at night, as soon as we pulled into Palm Canyon, I was like, this is the place I want to live.
Oh, you liked it there?
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. Palm Canyon, you coming in there at night, you pass the windmills.
I've never been there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you go through the mountain passes. It's all wide open,
Yeah. What was Ed doing with a gym there? I mean, with a house there. Did he buy it because he had a gym there?
a townhouse down there.
Oh.
Yeah, the Village Racket Club. He had a townhouse. And there was a Gold's Gym opening up there. A guy from Canada came down.
Is that where you were trained?
Yeah, and I think Ed introduced me to him, and the guy was watching me train, and he goes, look, Lou Ferrigno's coming down. He goes, would you do a seminar with him? I don't even think I had a contract at that time, Dave. I was still kind of like just traveling around. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do with Lou. I never met the guy before my life. So Lou came down like that next week.
Well, he had to be a kind of. You had to have known who he was, obviously.
I know who he was, but I never met him, and I'm like, whatever. I'm from, I'm like kind of a little hardcore guy. I don't give a shit who I meet. So I said, yeah, whatever. So I met Louis, and Louis shook my hand, and he said, how you doing? I said, I'm Jimmy, from New York. He said, how you doing? He shook my hand. He kind of blew it off.
Yeah.
Probably like I was like just another bodybuilder jerk, whatever. I don't know. So anyway, we did the seminar together, and I said, Lou just bought me. Yeah, he wanted to, be in the action. Yeah. We started going up 6 plates, 7 plates. Also, Lou didn't want to spot me no more.
Is that the video that's online where Lou said, no?
That's the first time I met him. Yeah, and he's like, I goes.
Who did they get to spot you after that? I forgot who.
Steve Hannaberry. He played
Hannaberry,
Conan.
Right. He was one of the American Gladiators.
Yeah, and he was doing some kind of exhibition up in. They got
Louis was afraid to spot you. There's actually a video on. If you go on YouTube, you can see it.
Yeah, he's like, no. He's like, so I said, Steve. So now I'm switching.
He was smarter than everyone to get away from you.
Lou didn't want nothing to do with it.
No. I don't think he thought you could do it.
He didn't. Now the funny thing is, people don't realize. I'm switching spotters at almost 800 pounds.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah.
You have to have confidence in yourself to do that because.
What gave you the confidence to put that kind of weight over your head? Like what when you got under the weight, what would be going through your mind? Not under 600. When you got under 800 pounds, what were you thinking?
I better get this.
Did you have any kind of greater spiritual insight than that?
No, I would just be like, I'm gonna, I wanted to succeed at just being like one of the strongest human beings walking the face of the earth. So I was like, I'm getting this weight. I don't give a shit what happens.
You knew you had the strength in you to do it.
Yeah, I definitely did. You
never said I'm going to tear a pec or anything like that.
I actually did tear a pec, but that was later on in my career. But I mean, I never really thought along those lines, man. I just wung it. I kept my mind free. When I did these exhibitions, and so Louis, they switched. So I didn't even worry. I didn't say, oh my God, they're switching now. This guy, Steve don't know the technique, and it's I don't even know if he knows how to spot me. You know what I mean? But we did it. They switched. They banged the plate off. People were crazy.
Was Louis impressed after all?
Louis was very impressed, man. He was like, He's like, go for 900. And he said that then. Yeah. And I said to myself, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, I will one day, I will.
Right. Was that the most you had done at the time?
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
Now, when did you start working for the company Hot Stuff? Because people who don't remember, Hot Stuff back in the day was like the supplement to use. No one really knows what was in it. No one knows what was in it, but for some reason, something was in it was making people grow.
Tom Ciola owned that company.
Yeah. How'd you hook up with him?
What happened was, see, that's another thing. Like, it just kind of happened for me. A friend of mine who owned a restaurant in New York also owned a restaurant in Florida, and Tom Ciola used to go to their restaurant.
Oh, really?
With his family. So my friend Adam, was like a fan of mine, and so when he saw Tom, he goes, I got a friend back in New York, man. Jimmy, you never seen it like your life. This guy's an animal. So Tom says, really? I'd like to meet him, Yeah. So they wanted to meet me, so I flew down there. I stayed with Adam's family, and I met Tom and everything. And Tom says, look, he goes, I hear everything about you. It's great. He goes, he wanted to make me the prime guy for his company. I says, yeah, whatever you want to do. He goes, look, I'll pay you. He goes, if you could come down and break the world record in front of Ed Cohn, Ted Arcidi.
The real powerlifters.
Yeah, they were all there.
Yeah.
At this gym somewhere. I says, yeah, no problem. Whatever you want to do. I said, I'll come down, So
you were going to go for a legitimate record?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Which was something you had never done?
No, I never, and I never wanted to.
But he was going to pay you to do it.
He was going to pay me $2,500
right,
to do the lift, and then give me a contract
So you figure here's my chance.
as the golden boy, which I
Right.
didn't like later because I didn't like that,
Yeah.
But I was going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I was still young, and I was like, I'm going to take this contract. It's my first one,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. So I trained for it, and somehow I ended up with Mike Quinn. I don't know how, but me and Mike hooked up. I think I went out that night. I was at a club, Club Boca.
You went out the night before lifting?
Yeah, no, it was like I had like a week.
Oh.
So I went out. I met Mike, and I ended up moving in with him down there for a while.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
God, that must have been a crazy.
Yeah, I'll tell you stories there. But so anyway, I trained for this thing, and then the day of the.
Did you feel confident that you would break the world record?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
What was the world record
I
at
was
the
doing it
time?
in the gym. It was 565 at my body weight or something like
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
So I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
I was with my girlfriend Rita at that time, and I was training. I was already doing more than that.
Yeah.
Straight.
Yeah.
So now, you know me with money.
Yeah.
So when I got there, Pam was his right hand person.
Uh-huh.
She did all this, the money and
Yeah.
the office.
Uh-huh.
And, So I said, Pam, am I going to get paid, for this event? She says, well, Tom said, if you break the record, you're going to get paid. I said, well, what if something happens? I got to get paid anyway,
Yeah.
I flew down there, trained. She goes, no, if you don't break it, you're not going to get paid. So I needed money at that time,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, I'm getting paid no matter what. I know I'm going to break it, but if I do this, first of all, there wasn't even no judges there. Oh, that's what it was. I was also pissed off because he didn't have no guys there with the lights.
Official judges.
Yeah, it was just Ted Arcidi, So I said, if I'm going to do this, I want it on record.
Yeah, because you want to get credit for it.
Yeah, and he was like, well, if you do it in front of Ted Arcidi and Ken and all
Ken
these
Lane,
other Ken Lane and
They had the two record holders, yeah.
Ed Cohen, who's I'm very good friends with still
Yeah,
today, and he goes, that's good enough. I said, well, I don't want it. I want it. I want a record, man. I want So we got this big heated argument, and I walked out.
You left?
Being a hot-headed guinea I am, I stormed out of there. And I went to the gym, and I took 5'8". It was with Rita,
You went to another gym?
Yeah, I went to a gym right after I walked out. I was so pissed. I trained all
Yeah.
for 2 weeks for this thing,
Yeah.
So I just went into the gym and I loaded up the plates. Rita was spotting me, and then I just took 580 off, man, just by myself, man.
Right,
Just took
which
it.
was probably the record. At the
It was
time.
over the record.
Yeah.
I just took it, I touched it, I squeezed it, and I got up, I yelled, here, you MF, there it is. Rita was trying to calm me down, and we all left,
So you blew it,
I
basically.
blew that one. But anyway,
But then Metrics came along later.
Twin Lab first, actually.
Yeah, and then Metrics. Oh, yeah, Twin Lab, right. Steve Blackman had you on the cover of Muscular
Yeah,
Development.
what happened was he got wind of me
Through Don
also,
Ross.
Don Ross, and there was some other people in his office, and so he wanted to meet me. So actually, I met the father. I came in, the father sat me down,
The father was the brains behind the whole
Yeah, he was there. He
operation.
started in the garage.
Yeah.
His business, They were making stuff for horses at the time, before the
Oh, I
beginning.
didn't even know that, yeah.
Yeah. So he sits me in his office, Steve walked me in there, sat down. Steve was over here, his father's over there. And he looks at me, the father, I'll never forget, and he's like, what can you do for Twin Lab? And I was like, well, I says, what can you do for me? I says, I know what I could do, what I mean? So, but anyway, we hit it off. We liked it right away because he was like a hard ass,
Yeah, which is crazy
Yeah.
seeing that is where his son
So we
was.
started bullshit, and then, before you know it, they signed me a contract, man, 3 year, So I made Steve give me medical insurance.
Did he really? Smart.
So I told him, I said,
What if
listen,
you get hurt? Yeah.
I said, look, the bodybuilders you have on contract now, they train, they compete. I'm lifting for you. I'm doing strength demos. If
Right.
something happens at the demo, I'm out.
Yeah.
So he gave me full coverage.
That was great.
Yeah. So it was a 3 year contract and full
You
medical.
you got a cover, too. I remember. Muscular Development cover.
Mitsuro just came over from Japan,
Sorakabe, yeah.
and Steve says, "You're going to shoot with Jimmy in California," So he was all excited, and we shot. We were doing body parts and all that. And I think that's actually when I did that bench, if I'm not mistaken. Was that week?
Yeah, all right. So let's talk about the bench the bench heard around the world, pretty much. How did this whole come about, the whole bench press thing? What was it? What was the total, first of all?
10-15.
And why did you pick 10-15?
Don wanted to do that.
Where did we get 10-15 from? Why not 1,000 pounds?
Because Don was a theatrical person.
Right.
He was a wrestler. He was friends with Nicole Bass and, you know, the whole
Yeah.
crew and all that, you know. So I was going to do 1,000, you know. I said, Don, we're going to, you know, he was with me.
Yeah.
I said, we'll do 1,000, we'll load it up. He goes, no, Bull, no. He goes, I can't write it up like that. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, we got to say the Iron Bull breaks the 1,000-pound barrier. We got to go more. I go, you want to,
101? 1,001?
Yeah, so what do you want to do? He goes, so we ended up putting on, I don't know how, we duct taped it on.
Yeah.
1,015.
Yeah, I was saying, do the weights fit on the bar?
Just barely. I had 11 45s on each side.
Oh my God.
And then we duct taped these 2.5s and nickels on the end, whatever the hell it worked out to be. I had to duct tape.
It was 10, 15.
Yeah, it was no, so, and this was really, I didn't even plan that. I was doing a photo shoot.
Was this in Gold's Gym Venice?
It was in Gold's Gym in Venice.
And who was spotting you at this point? Do you remember?
I had the Pagans spot me at that point.
Oh, the Pagans were there?
I was friends with a few of them.
Pagans bike
From the
club?
neighborhood,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. So originally, I told Steve about it, and Steve wanted me to put, I forget what it was, jet fuel, or one of the fuels he wanted me to put on the bike, and he wanted me to ride up with the club.
Oh, really?
With the can on the bike on the handlebars. It was raining that day, so I called Steve. I said, we can't do it. So they all came down anyway. Because they were going to...
Oh, the bikers? Oh.
Yeah, they were going to come riding, you know. I was going to be riding with all of them,
Yeah.
and we were going to have Gainer's fuel or one of the fuels.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Steve, he always wants to
Theatrical, yeah.
do this stuff too, you know. So that didn't work out, so they just came into the gym.
So you come in with the Pagans.
People were a little nervous, you know, because they were all there.
Who, was there a lot of people watching?
But, yeah, what happened was it ended up where we were doing a photo, a different body part.
Let's hold that moment for. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, you're going to tell us about the 2015 bench.